What's up, besties? I hope you're having a marvelous day. This video has been in the making for a bit because I didn't have time, Christmas. But essentially, I was shopping at Flying Tiger, like looking for gifts, and I found this DIY print kit. It's for children, surely. At least looking at like the example pictures, but I figured I could work with it. And what it has is like some pre-prepared drawings like that you can copy. It has, more importantly, a big rubber to like make the stamps out of, some carving tools, and a little roller. And interestingly, when it comes to like the carving knife, I thought there was two at the beginning, but I think it's just one, like looking at the packaging. I have bought a stamp making kit from Lidl like last year, maybe a little more than a year ago, and I still have it. I just ran out of the rubber, so I mainly bought this one from Flying Tiger for the sake of the rubber, but I still have the carving tools, and they are identical. Like, the only difference is that the ones from Lidl have like some information stamped on them, like some logo. It's Crelando logo, and that it's manufactured in Netherlands. And the blades are slightly different, but it's the exact same handle made with the exact same wood and the exact same like caps on it, and also like the exact same like metal thingies like holding the blades in place. I think these may have been either like made from the exact same design, or maybe even like have the exact same manufacturer. I'm not sure, but they are very, very much alike. I could just switch the caps with one another, and they would just fit fine, because yeah, they are very, very similar. The blades are slightly different, because when it comes to the ones I have from Lidl, one is like a knife blade, like just a straight cutting knife, and one is like curved, but just a little curved, so it's very, very shallow. And I actually like the one from the Flying Tiger more than I like this one, because it's like V-shaped, so I can actually cut into it without like making some weird cuts with the knife blade, and then like trying to cut that out with the white blade, I'm going to call it. But yeah, these are very, very alike. And when it comes to like what I did, basically I took the rubber, I took the transferring sheet that was in the Flying Tiger kit. I think I forgot to mention it when I was describing what it has. It has a sheet of transferring paper, and I put the transferring sheet so that it transfers onto the rubber and not onto my bench. And I have a picture of my dog, Carmel, printed out, and I just used clips to like hold it exactly in place, like where I want it to be, and just traced it over. I didn't really want to like have to sketch it out myself, because like the fun part was carving and using it as a stamp, so I kind of just wanted to skip that one step, like it wasn't important. The only difference is that when it comes to the photo, on the photo he's wearing a collar and a harness, and I didn't want him to wear that on my final pieces, so I just like drew over it. Like, I can roughly remember his fur pattern, so that wasn't so difficult. And once I had it like transferred, I took off the transferring sheet and the the photo. And I'm actually not that big of a fan of this transferring sheet. Like, I've used similar ones that were not from some craft kit, just general transferring paper, and I think those worked better. Like, this one is blue, maybe it's like the color, I don't know. I've always seen them black, but it did work. It just didn't like transfer many like fine details, and also it was quite pale, and I was scared it's going to erase off very easily. So what I did was that I just grabbed a ballpoint pen, like a regular cheap ballpoint pen, and I just went over all of the outline, and I saw what I was doing much better, because going with a regular gray pencil over a black and white photo, I could see like which parts I did outline, but I didn't really see my lines all that well. So I kind of like made the decisions where I want the lines to go also, and if I skipped something or if it didn't transfer. Now it is transferred, so yeah, I just went and did that. And once I was done with that, I went to cut it out, and yeah, I think like the smarter way to do it would be if I made the image like more in the corner or on the side of the rubber, but I was just like, it's perfectly A4, and the transferring sheet is also perfectly A4, and my picture that I just printed is also perfectly an A4, and it was just so much easier to just do it like this. Like, I was like, yeah, this is wasteful, but I am also dumb, and I feel like I'm going to fuck it up if I do overcomplicate it. So yeah, I was using scissors to cut it, and also a knife, and a knife was going much faster than the scissors, but I couldn't really do like any turns with it, so I was kind of mixing both techniques in there. Because the carving tool that they gave us, I don't think was very useful for this purpose. I think they used it in the instruction. However, I only looked at the instruction on accident. I did not read it, so maybe there was an easy way. I struggled a bit. But yeah, I've got all of this excess rubber that I can use for like smaller things. I was thinking, since I can stamp on fabric, I can like do like brand logos, for example, or stuff like that. So that's cool. And yeah, I went to carve that out later on. When it comes to carving that, it was actually easier than it looked. The biggest like hardship that I had was that I didn't really see what was already carved off and what wasn't. So I've seen people like staining their rubber before doing that. Like, they would just put some ink on top, and so that their little outlines are still visible, but once then they carve off like the top layer, you can see that the bottom is a different color. And it was a little bit different because I didn't stain it, but it was like white underneath. But the white was very similar to the light blue, so I was I was just guessing. Honestly, I was just looking at my own lines, and like, if my lines are preserved, then they stay. I think the fact that this is a dog also helped, because I could just go in the directions where the fur would go, because he's got a long fur. So that was easy, and it actually took me like less than an hour, like the carving process. I thought it would be harder. The reason why it was easier than I expected was the carving tool that they included, because as I've said, it's much better than the one from Lidl. Like, much easier to use. I could just carve straight into, and like dig into it, and still have quite a lot of precision. I used the little tools a little bit, since I had them like on the edges especially, but they weren't necessary. Like, I could do it without them. And yeah, I was just carving him. I was quite scared, you know, that I'm going to waste this whole thing, but it turned out okay, I think. Especially for something that took me less than an hour. Then I tested it out, and as you can see, the stamp works well, but I just didn't know how to stamp very well at that point yet. This is the worst you're going to see out of this stamp, because I've put too little of the paint. In the instructions, they instructed us to use like the Flying Tiger acrylic paint. I've never bought acrylic paint at Flying Tiger, and I'm not going to, because I don't really believe it will be good. I've used my acrylic paint. That one I used for testing was actually, I think, from Teddy, which is also quite low quality, but I think it's the most comparable to what Flying Tiger would sell. Like, the packaging is very similar, the consistency is probably the same, looking at like their own pictures, you know. The ones I usually use are from Daler Rowney Graduate Acrylic. They are more expensive, unfortunately, but they are much thicker, and I think that helped me a lot later on also. But yeah, I just wanted to test it out without wasting much of like good paint, so yeah, it did work well. And also and also the acrylic paint did stain the rubber a little bit, but it wasn't transferring later on. Like, the red wasn't a problem or anything like that, and it was just much easier visible, like where my lines are, because when I washed it off later on, because I was washing it after every time I was done using it, like, I didn't really wash it entirely out of like all of the crevices, so you could see like my outline is light blue and the rest is a little pinkish later on, but you know, that's okay. And also the roller was also like washable. It's made out of like a sponge, so I was scared it's going to get unwashable, but it's okay. Like, that's not the problem with the roller. However, there will be a problem with it. And then I wanted to stamp it onto something, right? So I figured I'm going to make a tote bag, because I wanted something that's like big and flat, so that was like an obvious idea. And I actually had the handle pre-made. It was like a boat for something, I think, but I just cut it in half, so it's two handles and a handle. It didn't match perfectly, but it's good enough, I'd say. Here you can see me like just aligning the handles with what's going to be the lining of the bag. I didn't really have a good fabric for that. I made this out of scraps. This fabric is just like white with blue with like polka dots. I don't like polka dots, but I figured it's okay for lining. And for the like main black part, I've used the rest of the fabric from when I was making the Batwing bag. I don't have really much of that anymore, but you know, I finally used it, I guess, because I bought a bit too much that time. And here I'm just sewing the handle to the lining, because I figured I don't want this like ugly squares onto like my visible part of the bag. And also I just wanted this bag to be like a little extra, like not just the cheapest tote bag you're going to like get for your groceries. Hence, you know, it has lining. Usually tote bags don't have lining, but yeah, this is made out of scraps still. I think the fabrics are fine though. They just don't look, they just don't exactly match, I guess. And here you can see me like sewing in these like black stripes of fabric onto the lining with the handle as well, and I had to redo it because I did it the other way around, not like I was supposed to. The reason why I'm doing that is that I want the handle to be like more inside of the bag, and also I don't want the lining to be visible, like stick out in any way, so there's going to be like this rather thin layer of black fabric like still inside the bag, and then like the lining starts. Like I don't know how to explain it, you'll see it later on. I couldn't cut out one piece of the black fabric that would be big enough to just fold in half and use the same way the lining is, so I cut out two smaller ones, and I you know, had to sew them together, but I think this looks good actually, like the lining inside not having any sewing points at the bottom is good, but here I think it does make sense visually. And here you can see me assembling it all together and failing miserably because I overcomplicated it, and I just didn't know what I had on my mind myself at that point. So yeah, and also the battery in my phone died when I was recording it, and I didn't see it because, like, as you can see, you have the view from above again, because I just didn't want the phone in my way when I was doing that. I didn't have space for that, and I didn't have brain for that. I was struggling. But as you can see at the end, when the video cuts, I have something, and all I had to do later on was to put it in a way that it would be like inside out, like folded in half, and then sew the edges, and that's what I did, and that's the part you didn't get, but that was the like simplest part. That was where I was already like, fine, I am at the point where all I have to do is to like finish it off, right? No more thinking, no more struggling, let's just sew straight lines, that's all. And here you can see me like turning the bag inside out, just because I wanted to cut off like the edges that were left on the sides. Like the bottom is perfect, like, but on the sides there is like fabric sticking out. If I wanted to, I could make it to be like inside of the bag, but I was just too frustrated to care at that point, so I just sewed it in like the regular way, and decided to just cut off the excess and be done with it, because yeah, I was scared I'm going to like mess it up again, and I wanted this to be big enough for me to be able to carry A4 sized things in it. But like, when I say I was working with scrap fabric, I mean it. This is all I had. So I could barely make it like big enough for that without folding the fabric to on the sides, and without worrying about that. So I just gave up in this one regard. So sorry, I guess it's not really visible like once you turn the bag the right side out, so you know. And here we got to the fun part, which is the painting. And I figured that since the lining is like white and blue, and since my dog is ginger, and you know, orange looks good with blue, then I should make blue background for him, because I wanted to have black outline. Because you know, this is a stamp, and I used and I kind of made it with an assumption that the eyes are black, right? So if I wanted to stamp white caramel onto like a dark background, it wouldn't look as good because it would just he would have white eyes. I don't know, that's the one point. And also I wanted to like make it colorful, so yeah. Anyway, I one mistake I did here is that I went straight with the blue, and it was drying very not blue, it was like drying into the fabric and being still black, just a bit bluish black. Also, I've put an old laptop case inside of the bag just in case, so that I don't stain it, and if that, you know, the paint doesn't seep through. And it didn't, but it did later on in another thing I was stamping. So do that if you're painting acrylic paints onto something. As far as I'm aware, acrylic paints are very similar to fabric paints in general. Like, they are thicker, that's one thing, but they don't wash off. Like, if you ever stain something with acrylic paint, you will know it does not wash off. So it can work on t-shirts. The only thing is that they're quite stiff, so I've seen people recommending mixing them with fabric softener. I didn't do that because I was painting on black once again, and I wanted the pigment to be as pigmented as possible. Yeah, but it's not a problem when it comes to the bag. It's a little awkward when it comes to like a t-shirt, for example, right? The way I did the background also, I first like outlined him on the fabric, and then painted so that it sticks out of him, so I know he fits perfectly. And now I just stamped him on again. I just used a bit of like red, yellow, and white, so that it's this like beige colored, so it's not white but also not ginger, so it's easier for me to like see where I have to paint later on. And the one problem when it comes to the background also was that I put the paint like too thickly in some places, and because of that it was very uneven. So I only did that on this one bag. I was trying to apply thinner layers later on, and also thinner layers with the paint like once the background was set, because I saw that it has texture and I didn't really want it to have texture, but no, fair enough. Like, for the first time, it's okay. And then I painted him, and the entire painting job took me like 20 minutes, and I think that's the better one, and I think that's the better one that I'm going to do in this video. It just came out better. Generally I painted most of him like various shades of ginger, remembering that his ears and the top of his head a lighter shade of ginger than the rest of him, and also like some white, as you can see, and I used brown for the eyes and the nose and just some of the shading, but I just didn't do too much detail because I knew I'm going to stamp the outline on top of that, so I was just prepared that the outline is going to do a lot of the job. And here's the scary part, which is stamping again, right? I just stamped black on top of it, like just so that there's this black outline and, you know, all of these black lines. And actually I have some equipment malfunctions, I'm going to call it, because the roller just broke. And I was trying to still use it because I figured the roller is much better for applying paint to a stamp like that than a brush, for example, would be, because it doesn't get into these crevices, so I'm sure that the paint is not going to go anywhere where I'm not stamping it onto. But it broke, so yeah. And once I was like mostly done with putting the paint on it, like on the stamp, it was very much drying, and once I stamped it, a lot of it didn't come where it was supposed to, but I had the rough guidelines, so I figured I'm just going to finish it off with, you know, just a brush and some paint. So I did that. I just went over the outline where I felt it was missing with the tiny brush and black paint. And also I used some white paint, especially like in his eyes and in like in some places on his face, to just accentuate things a little bit, so that, you know, it's more coherent, because when I was putting on the color, like at some point I just overpainted the outline and I was putting it a little bit like intuitively more, so it didn't match perfectly, and I wanted, like, for example, his chin to be a little, you know, whiter and lighter than what's underneath it, so there's more dimension. But you know, I didn't do much here. This took me like 4 minutes 4 seconds when it comes to my recording of it, so this was very quick, and I think it did a lot, and I didn't expect it to come out this good. I am very happy with it. This is probably my favorite thing I did in this video. You can all now stop watching. Please don't. I have more to come. Another thing I wanted to stamp him on is this just regular black t-shirt. I don't know where I got it, but it was very cheap, definitely. Because, yeah, just a regular t-shirt. And I'm not sure if there is a point of me like going through all of the painting steps once again, because they were very similar, so I'm only going to say what I changed. First of all, I started, when it comes to the background, from white, because white turned out to be much more opaque than the blue. And then I put blue on top of the white, kind of like mixing it in, because the white was like not fully dry when I started doing the blue, so it came out like light blue, but I think this color is very nice. I like this color a lot. I think the one thing I like about this thing more than about that one is the color. And also I figured that since I have a color that sticks out more, I can make some more patterns with it. Like you can see, I put some more like dabs of paint like on the edges, just for the fun of it, honestly. And one thing that went wrong here was that I placed the stamp wrong when I was stamping the last outline, so it was a little not best. And also when I was doing the final paint job, trying to like fix it, like, you know, with the thin brush, I also added like some little like circles, stars, dots, you know, this type of little things. I just think it looks neat. I'm not going to explain myself. I just think it looks neat. Also, while the paint on that one was drying, I also stamped it on a white t-shirt. As you can see, it's a very small t-shirt. It's my little sister's, and I didn't actually do like the additional painting. And I think this is like the second nicest thing that came out of this stamp, because I really like the bag, but I think this just outline is much more wearable than was on mine. And also as I've said, acrylic paint is very like stiff when it's dry, and when it comes to like this sort of outline, it feels normal. It feels like normal cotton t-shirt still, but mine is much thicker, and you know, it's a little less pleasant. But yeah, I think this one's cute. She wanted it herself. The t-shirt is not new. I mean, it's not old, but she stained it a little bit. So like, you know, it was mom agreed, so we just did one more t-shirt, and she liked it. So yeah. Here you can see me, like as I said, doing all the little details, all the little like last painting parts, and like on my black t-shirt, and I think the save is decent. Like I think I saved it. I just went over it, and where I felt like the proportions were a little I did some more things with white. As you can see, I added more white here, just in general, like both to his fur and like trying to like save his face shape. I like the bag more, but this is not the worst. I expected it to be much worse, like once I realized like the mistake I did, so it is what it is. It's not going to be better. I guess. And here you can see another thing that went not perfectly, which is that I just did it too low. I didn't want it to be like very much on top, because I planned the cut on this t-shirt that I'm about to do like from the start, but I didn't want it to be this low, so yeah. It's at least centered, I guess, although you can't really see it well on this video because, yeah. So what I did was that I put the t-shirt on myself like the wrong side out, and as you can see, the paint went through the t-shirts quite a lot, which is why the fact that I had a plastic like layer between the front and the back was so important. But I just took a pen and I marked where I am comfortable of like the cut ending on the t-shirt, so how far I can go without like my boobs just being exposed, especially that I do have another shirt with a cutout like this, and I thrifted it, and I didn't know like why someone would just give away a shirt like that, because it was a very nice shirt, but once I tried it on at home I realized that it's just far too much showing. It would show like my nipples even, so yeah, someone could a little carried away. This is why I think marking it was so important. Then I just took it off. As you can see, I folded in half in a way that I'm not going to like cut the back of the shirt, just the front. And I used my guideline, like the dot I left like where I feel comfortable like my cleavage being, to make like I made just a line up, just marked where I'm cutting. I took scissors and I just cut through both of the layers at the same time, so it's like even and symmetrical. And this was a little scary, obviously, like cutting into your things is scary, but yeah, I think it's fine in the end. Like it's definitely like more balanced as an item like to wear, so yeah. Here it is. And here it is on me. As you can see, it feels just more balanced when it's when there is something going on at the top as well. And yeah, I guess I'll have a shirt for his birthdays now. I don't know. Once again, I think the one I did for my sister is much more wearable, because this is just a bit too much. But I don't know, I'll definitely use the bag. And also I dyed my hair, like look at me, I'm as ginger as my dog is right now, so more ginger probably because I used an orange dye and he's like a ginger. But this was generally speaking more of like an experimentation on whether or not I can actually do it and pull it off. I can now like make more with like more wearable stuff than just my dog, but I am this type of a dog person who will go in public and like have to tell everyone about how much I absolutely adore this little idiot. So I think it's turned out decent. I like the bag the most out of everything that I've made, but this is cute too. And I have lost my last recording of what I did. I don't know how I did it, but here's the proof that it happened. Like it exists. I just wanted to like be able to have him in my sketchbook as well, since it's so easy to replicate. Like I can have it on anything I want right now. This is crazy. Like uh, 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 such a great position to be in, you know, being able to just put your talk on anything you want, like anything that's big and flat enough for it. But yeah, I could just stamp him right into it. I could just stamp him right in, but I like my sketchbook to be like used, like pages are covered on both sides. And the way I do it usually is that if I have something drawn on one side, that I'm going to just tape something on the other side, so it doesn't bleed through. So I just made a bunch of pages of him, because I planned to just like make one, maybe two, but I just put too much paint and I didn't want to waste it, since once again this is expensive paint. So I've made a lot of pages with him from this paint. You know, the initial ones are the coolest because I didn't fully blend the paint. Like I just put a bunch of like yellow, blue and red dots, and was like just, you know, once I put it on the roller, which was still damaged. Like the roller was damaged from the point where when I damaged it, I just kept on putting it on its place, and it was quite dirty, like, because, you know, I couldn't just not touch the paint, I had to touch it. Yeah. And later on it mixed more, but I have a lot of pages with my dog right now. What do I need them for? I don't know. I can just put them in different places as well. But yeah, here are the things that I've made, I guess. Like once again, I hope you liked this video, or that it was in any way interesting, or you know, it had some value for you. Maybe you want to try this out too. This kit wasn't expensive, but it was like in the part of the store where they keep things that are about to like not be in there, like they're just selling out like things that they didn't sell before. But maybe it'll come back, or maybe you can just order it online. I've seen similar stuff on Amazon. But yeah, I guess this is all from me for now. If you have any advice or any like other experiences with using such techniques, or you know, generally just putting stuff on clothes and on bags, because this video is inspired by my big revelation that I can use my stamps, the like stamps from Lidl that are way smaller, like on ribbons, and use that as like a cool little addition to my project. Like if you have any more ideas or experiences like that, I would absolutely love it if you left them in the comment section down below. And for now, just stay safe, have a happy new year. This is a little after you know, the New Year Eve, but we're still in the beginning of January, so it still counts. And peace.